Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for tuning in to another Canoe Kayak Ontario webinar. This is Rob and I's third Stotnar together. For those of you that don't know, I'm Courtney Stott. I'm the niece, national team athlete and coach apprentice.
And I'm Rob, the uncle and coach. We're going to spark some discussion and curiosity today. So if you have a question, wait till the end and raise your hand, and then we'll get to you. And if you're not, you can come off your camera. I'll put your camera on, and then you can ask your question directly to Vern.
So today we are very excited to be talking with Vern Gambetta about the myths and limitations and alternatives to periodization and long-term athlete development. When Rob and I started inviting people to register for this event, we had a lot of positive responses, and a lot of people on here follow your work.
Yeah, like people saying, like coach from Montreal saying, Vern effing Gambetta, and coach from BC saying he's a rock star, and a colleague from Slovenia that was familiar with your work. So what I'm impressed about you, Vern, is that you're relevant even after all these years. And
yeah,
I know you speak about your age a lot on your podcast, so I know you won't mind me mentioning that you're 75.
right.
And it's amazing. You're still learning. You're still coaching. You're in the modern age with a website and a popular podcast and your GAIN conference. So that's good incentive for some of us somewhat aging coaches. And I'm at the stage where I don't talk about my age. So good for you anyway. So we're happy to have you on.
Thank you. Well, I need to talk about it less. I live in the joke is I live in God's waiting room, in Sarasota, Florida. We're newlyweds and nearly deads, and a lot of Canadians and a lot of people from Michigan and Massachusetts here. So
Yeah.
a lot of all of Ontario moves down here. So anyway, so no, I'm looking forward to it. So fire away, and I just want to preface it by saying that if you want to contact me, I'll give you my contact information at the end. Please feel free to call me, contact me via email or whatever. Some of the things I will say might be, I'm not saying them to be controversial. That really isn't what I'm trying to be, but I want to provoke thought. I guess the good part about this is doing this as a coach for 54 years. It'll be 54 years in January. You make a lot of mistakes. Every once in a while you hit something right, and you try to repeat that. So I'll certainly share those with you, and a lot around this space. I'll give you that. So, all right, go ahead.
Well, before we get into the topic, we just wanted you to share a little bit about yourself, how you got into coaching, kind of who you've worked with and who you're working with, and what the GAIN Network is all about.
Basically, what have you been doing the last 50 years?
Yeah, well, I started coaching in 1969. I was a college football player, believe it or not, and an offensive lineman. So that's about as far as you can get from being a decathlete. And I hated it. It was a brutal experience. American football is a terrible sport anyway, but it was worse in the 60s. I took a class at Fresno State where I was an undergrad, my last semester in theory of track and field. I loved it. I had not competed in track except for running the 100 and throwing the shot in high school. And the coach said, well, if you want to learn how to be a track coach, do the decathlon. Well, it also tells you it's an intelligence test. I had not done 7 of the 10 events. So in California, try to make this really fast. I just did this on another podcast this morning. You have to go a 5th year to get your teaching certificate. You graduate college and you go. So I went to UCSB, where I'm from, and there was the coach there. It's ironically 2 coaches in the U.S. that knew decathlon were at a small school, Westmont College in UCSB. So I started training. What a magical mystery tour training with actually a guy named Jerry Morrow, who ended up Canadian record holder, really was instrumental in helping me. And I was hurt. I was hurt for almost the first 2 years because I had to get rid of had dings from football and that was an experience. Tried to do too much too soon, learned a lot about that, but got to train with the best in the world. I mean, literally with world record holders, Olympians and that. So I got to see, at the same time I was coaching basically 12 to 14-year-olds, middle school, junior high. great bunch of kids. We won a couple of national championships with there, and then I went on in graduate school at Stanford with a master's in education with an emphasis in PE. Coached there, coached the jumps and decathlon. Went back to Santa Barbara High School. Very, very storied tradition in track. We had great 3 years. Then I went to Cal Berkeley as assistant women's track coach years, and then became head cross country. And again, brought the program from basically it was non-existent, from 3 women to competing, for a national championship, and that left that and just coached through 84. Some open athletes, some decathletes. We moved down in Orange County. And then after the 84 Olympics, I went back to high school teaching, happy as could be. And like the movie The Godfather, I got an offer I couldn't refuse. It was to go to work with the Chicago Bulls and the White Sox, Chicago White Sox. And it was it's a hard decision, an easy decision, because as you know, you guys all know, in coaching, you're lucky if you're not on food stamps. And at the end of 3 years, I made more money than I would have made if I'd have stayed for the next 10 years coaching. So it was an easy decision. So I ended up director of conditioning for the White Sox for 9 years. At that time, I still coached one of my decathletes. I worked with the Canadian men's team from 88 to 90, track basketball team 88 to 94, women's team 92 to 94. Left the White Sox and went right to work in pro soccer. Worked with several MLS teams, the U.S. World Cup team, then kind of segued into a little bit of rugby and soccer, and a lot of the Commonwealth sports, and really started getting, no pun intended, in over my head in the deep end with swimming around 2001, 2002. Even though I had learned a lot from swimming really from early on. And I think there's a lot of parallels from my lessons in swimming to what you guys do. I've not spent as much time, and I spent a lot of time around rowers. At Cal, it was a big sport, even though I didn't coach it, but not very much time, around canoe and kayak. So, and then basically, right now we have a thing called the GAIN Network. I'll explain that in a minute. And we also have GAIN Swimming. We work with 22 of the top teams in the U.S. doing their dryland training, coaching, mentoring. There's a colleague of mine that oversees most of that. I just do a lot of the programming. And we started the GAIN Network. I think this will be the 16th year. It's a professional development network. Would love to invite any of you guys that are interested. We do it at Rice University every year. I modeled it after a program that I saw at Loughborough University in the 70s it wasn't British Athletics, and it was British Amateur Athletic Board, where it's literally, we go from 6 a.m. till whatever time you want to go at night, and it's just total immersion into sports science, coaching, rehabilitation, you name it. And it's really become quite a community. And I'll put the link. We have coffee talks once a month, and we have a coffee talk on the 22nd. You're welcome to join, no cost, just to sit in. And if you want to contribute, fine. If you just want to listen. And we've had some of the greatest coaches in the world, and some people that were nobodies when they started and are superstars now. So I don't know, that's, I'm a grandpa of a beautiful 2-year-old granddaughter. And unfortunately they live in California, and proud papa of my son's working on his PhD. And so it's cool. Life is good. And like I said, live in Sarasota. My heart's in California, but
yeah.
What can I say? So
Right.
it's the worst place.
Thanks for that, Vern. And Corey and I were just talking about us learning about periodization, today's topic, periodization and LTAD. And when I learned it 40 years ago, it was with Tudor Bumpa, who's, pretty kind of the North American godfather of it. And Courtney was learning it recently, and it was all the same kind of stuff. So that'll segue us into your first question, Courtney.
Okay.
Sorry. We want to work off that article that's on your website, the 5 myths of periodization. But first, we just want to ask you, at what point in your career did you start to question periodization and its validity?
Well, let's go back to 1969. I mean, I knew the U.S. had come off the greatest Olympics ever, and they've had track and field. But I also knew that it was because of our school sports, and there wasn't a lot of planning, and there were sports, there were, and so I always, and today I look for sports, and within even swimming or track and field or your sport, where people are really doing stuff in a systematic manner. So, and I can't look at East Germany. I can't look at the behind the Iron Curtain because that doesn't fit us. So I looked at all the other countries, and I kept seeing this process, this word periodization. So, and the name Matveev came up. So basically, I tried to get my hands on everything I could, and it was planning. And I bought it all, hook, line, and sinker, which was good. It was good. You needed to do that to get immersed in that, particularly at that time and place. But I started to realize 2 years into this that, and then the fifth year, sorry, when I started coaching, when I coached at Stanford, that a lot of this stuff wasn't matching up with what I was learning about physiology. It wasn't matching up. And so I didn't so much begin to doubt it. I just started to question the efficacy of it. And for me, the break point really came in 1988, 1990. Some of it when I started working with basketball. I was working with the White Sox. We planned everything, but it just didn't. It was anti-Bomba. It didn't. Most of the stuff that he said in the book just didn't ring true, and you didn't have time to do some of this stuff and all the independent things. So it was a process of learning that there was something else we needed to do, I think is the best way to put it. But early on, when you're working with young developing athletes, you do anything and they get better, but we did it in a systematic, very systematic manner. So they showed, and which they should at that age. So hope that answers it. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you said like anti bump away, what were some examples of that? Like what?
Well, everything's so strictly programmed, with these very, very definite time blocks, and it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. I call it and a lot of it, I joke, I call it the Judeo-Christian, model, 7 days. The big guy worked for 6 days, gave us the 7th day off. And I started to find out I had kids that had 2 paper routes, all kinds of different situations we could work out. So sometimes it was easier to do more on the weekend and take a day off in the middle of the week, and why did you always do a long run on Sunday? Or why did you do, in my own training, we did an unbelievable base, okay? I ran 30 minutes 3 times a week. We'd done repeat 4. I'm a decathlete. I'm 188 pounds. Do a decathlon first week in January. My best 100 at that time was 11.4. I ran 12.4, okay? Well, wait a minute, something's wrong here. I did everything the book says to do, and that's speed is paramount. And I could have run 3 100s in 5 minutes, but the scoring table gives you points for fast 100, not repeat 100s. So long. Sorry, I don't want to get off on too many tangents.
No, yeah.
Okay.
Getting to the first myth. Okay, so the first myth that we're gonna try to debunk is we're still living in the 1960s.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is basically just saying that periodization is based on only like one competition making up the competition season, whereas nowadays that just doesn't really work. We have a lot more competition. So what are some of the solutions to addressing that problem?
Yeah. Well, to me, it's pretty simple. And if you look at Bompa et al., and there's a lot of other people too around the world, less emphasis on long-term planning. Okay. You have to have a long-term plan, but the long-term plan is definitely general and thematic. It's not detailed. Okay. So that's the first thing. All right. You have to have really good contingency plans. Competitions get moved, particularly in sports like yours. And we, I saw that in track and field. One year, we didn't know when nationals was in decathlon until 3 weeks before. So you're shooting for a moving target. It's not It's not that strictly, and it all comes down to strict competition control, which we don't have anymore. Okay, in all sports, it's at all levels, there's not clearly defined off seasons anymore. So that's the one thing. To me now, and what I've evolved to, is much more emphasis on construction of the microcycle. And the microcycles for me usually are 10 or 14 days, not 7. It allows me for better distribution of the work and allows me to adjust the week around work and school and things like that. And then recognizing that session planning is where the rubber meets the road, where you're really doing detailed session planning. So let's say we have a speed session plan today. All right. So what led into the speed session the day before, and what's going to lead out of that tomorrow? So that's where I'm putting my emphasis now. Okay. So I've got the broad plan, and then usually we go blocks of, the maximum we'll go is 6 weeks, which is 2 3-week, 3 2-week 14-day microcycles. Okay, still use the same kind of terminology, and what I have there is 2 weeks of foundation. So and I'll go into this later. 2 weeks of foundation, 2 weeks of preparation, and then 2 weeks of adaptation. So I try to revolve those cycles so that if I have competitions, I try to have those, try to evolve it so it's in the 5th and 6th week usually. And then, so I don't know, I think that's probably.
Yeah. Okay, so myth number 2 about the traditional periodization is that it's based on science. Is it more of a tradition that we've been, it hasn't changed. Like I said, like it was a 40-year.
Yeah.
I learned it to when Courtney's learned it, and many of the coaches on the call haven't changed that much.
It was based on the science that we knew up to the time, and the best science. And Hans Selye, not Canadian, but in Canada, did his work on stress, and it was all on rats, and it was all on the physiology, looking at testosterone and cortisol and that, and just looking at that. And so immediately people glommed on the general adaptation model, which we call the supercompensation model, but the problem is that's a very stylized model that only takes into consideration part of the physiology. Okay. And it doesn't take into consideration social cultural considerations, gender, where in that. So to me, that's a big part of it. The original work by Matveyev was weightlifting, track and field, 3 sports, I think swimming. Okay. And remember that work was done in the 50s. And in the 50s, there was world championship in weightlifting, no world championship in swimming, no world championship in track and field. And so everything was pointed toward the Olympic Games. And in Europe, in the European Championships, and that, and I look at your faces. A lot of you are younger. You don't probably know this. The first World Swimming Championship was 1975, I believe, in Belgrade. The first World Track and Field Championship was 1983 in Helsinki. And and then the wall came down, and then everything changed because what they used to do, and I have a real interesting book I'm reading now. I just started it yesterday about Jan Ullrich, the cyclist, about his career. And there's another book that you might be able to still get there by Doug Gilbert, who passed away. He's a Canadian journalist. He was killed at the Pan American Games in 1979. Wrote this book, The Miracle Machine, about East Germany. It's a little bit of an East German puff piece. They let him see what he wanted to see, so you have to read between the lines. But basically they didn't compete very much. So you could do a huge period of general training and probably not have it affect your competitive schedule. That's just not realistic today, So the science there, and there's more science being done today, looking at what's called allostasis, ALLOSTASIS, homeostasis, as opposed to homeostasis. And homeostasis is more the physiological state of the being, and allostasis is the overall person, the psycho-emotional state, and that. And so so a lot of the work is really coming out of social psychology and that kind of stuff, as opposed to actual physiology. Now, the other thing to remember, a lot of the Western literature written on research studies done on periodization has been periodization of what? One quality, strength. If you do a search for periodization, go on Google Scholar now, I would venture to say up until, I'll just make a stab, 2005, probably 80% of them was periodization of strength training. And that's not what periodization is. Periodization is how all the qualities interact to create a training stimulus to force adaptation for the athlete in their respective sport. Okay.
Right. So do you think, I mean, even though a lot of sports have gone to, away from just one world championship or one big competition per quadrennial, do you think this model could still work for developing athletes where they may not?
Yeah, that was a question that I kind of puzzled at, and I really thought about it a lot. I don't know if I have a good answer for you. I'm gonna have to think about it. I know that a traditional periodization model, where you have a general prep, a transition, and then a competition prep, and that's what we did, 1969, 70, 71. But it worked really well with that age group. They had PE, they had all these kinds of things. I think we can do better. I think we can do better, particularly with a developing athlete. And I'm jumping around here. You had some questions about, do you train strengths or weakness? You've got somebody that you identify as a potential kayaker, and they have maybe it's a girl who's 5'11", and 150 pounds, and she's 14 years old. Okay. Ooh. Yeah. I mean, they're there. They're on their volleyball court. Yeah. But she's got some overriding strengths. She has some overriding weaknesses. So you prioritize training, and so you don't take away her strengths, but you start to hone and work around some of the weaknesses. So I think this idea of that we talk about later in here of training all qualities all the time is really important. And folks, if you write one thing down from this, periodization is not about time. Go look at go online and go on Google and do a search for periodization. They'll say it's always about, no, it's about timing. It's about when you apply the training stimulus. Okay, there's an optimum time for you or for me to apply a speed stimulus versus a strength power stimulus versus aerobic capacity versus power versus technique. Okay, and that's what this is. It's a big jigsaw puzzle. We know where the corners are, right? The corners are those the end result that we're looking for. But we've got to figure out how to fit those pieces together for each athlete. And that's the biggest challenge we have now. Look, we've got Summer McIntosh, who's arguably one of the top 3 swimmers in the world. She will break the world record in the 400 IM. There's no question about that. And we have the next closest kid to her is one length of the pool behind. But they're world class too. That shows how good she is. So now what do? There's got to be different emphasis. She comes 2 mornings a week, extra 45 minutes of posture, core, shapes. The other kids aren't ready for that. Okay. And so when do we put various things? And she does different rest intervals, things like that. Yeah. At this time of the year. Her comment was to me in Dryland, geez, these are some rest intervals that I hardly ever did before. Right. These are rest intervals, that you need to challenge that system now. So sorry,
Yeah.
I didn't mean to, I don't want this to be a conversation about summer, but that's
No,
a
but
good example.
we're jumping ahead a little bit, but that's why it's
Yeah.
tied in.
Yeah.
So,
All
Courtney, you
connected.
got the next one?
Yeah, so myth number 3 is we can predict performance. I guess like in this myth, you talk about how like the point of periodization is to predict performance, but can we even predict that? Like, is it
Yeah.
realistic to even
Yeah.
suggest that?
I call it prediction addiction. Okay. And we all have that. And right now I could show you the weather map, whether or not we're going to have practice today. There's a voracious thunderstorm with tornadoes at a front edge. And before we came on, I looked at the weather forecast. The storm is 45 minutes away, 45 minutes, and they still can't exactly predict where it's going to hit. So do we think that we can take all the variables for one of your races, the longest or the shortest, and have you ready for a PB at one point in time? Just think logically. You wouldn't go to Las Vegas and put your life savings down on that. And that's what we're asking athletes to do. Okay, so we've got to have an alternative then, right? So what we have to do is the goal is to be, and I don't know if you remember this from London when we were at the Coble Coaching House, is one of the big themes there is, can you be ready on the day? Can you be ready when you need to be? It's not necessarily peak performance. A lot of times in a lot of sports, it's trials, semifinals, finals, and things like that. And and you asked about why I call it planned performance training, because to me that's a more accurate representation of I'm planning my training to achieve a level of performance. And I'm not trying necessarily, I want my best performance to come at the end, but I'm going to have a stair-step approach, rather than just say, oh, I'm not ready. How many times do you hear athletes say that? I'm not ready yet. I haven't started doing speed work. Good. I want to coach against you. Okay. That's what Kate Ledecky said after Summer beat her. Well, we've been doing a lot of work. Well, good luck, because she'll eat your lunch if you keep doing that. So sorry. I hope don't.
No, that's good. So what are some ideas from getting away from this rigid linear planning to something that's more athlete centered or more sport oriented?
I wrote some notes. I just so I don't, God, I'm so bad. I just wander all over the place. I wrote some notes here too. Say the question again now. Wait,
from tips for like shifting away from rigid planning of traditional periodization to something that just looks at the athlete, is more athlete centered or focused.
Yeah, you basically the secret, if there's a secret, is training all qualities all the time. But what you do is you train those qualities in different proportions. So if it's a preparation, a foundation phase, I like the word foundation versus base. Okay, and I'll explain that. You bought an older house. Okay, you got a deal on it. It's a nice house, but you want to add a next floor to the house. Okay, do you blow the house up and start over? No, you strengthen the foundation. So every year you strengthen the foundation. Okay, and remember, your foundation phase usually starts after your competitive phase. So you should be really fit. So you should be able to take advantage of that fitness and start your next foundation phase at a higher level instead of going back and spending 3 months getting slow. Okay. And also, how much can you improve max VO2? You can improve efficiency, and you can improve, you guys, just like swimming, distance per stroke, stroke efficiency, all of those kinds of things. But so the key is in that foundation phase, I'll have a little bit of speed, but I set my training up so that each cycle, remember I said 3 weeks. So I have a major emphasis and a minor emphasis. The major emphasis says that that's going to show up at least 3 times every 7-day microcycle. A minor emphasis is 2 or 1, just enough to stabilize. So you have this 5'11", 140-pound prospect, chances are, because she came from volleyball or something like that, she wanted to be in an individual sport. I'm just going to make an assumption that aerobically she's not where she needs to be. So her major emphasis is going to be on aerobics. But you put her in the gym and she can jump out of the gym. You don't want to lose that. That's your start, right? Depends. I mean, she's a sprint kayaker. I don't know. So you want to keep working. You don't want to let that quality go. That's been the biggest mistake. And if you go back, and there's a whole shelf of books back there, you can see behind me, all on every edition of Bomp, every edition of Matveyev. I've got Matveyev in Russian, German, and English. It's all the same gobbledygook. And that. But it got us to a point, but we've got to get past that. And that's the crusade that I'm on right now.
Right.
If you're an athlete, say, I haven't really started to do speed work yet, I'm just going, that's foolish. That's foolish, because everything comes down to speed. What percentage of your maximum speed can you hold for the race distance? That's what it comes down to. Sorry.
Yeah. No, great. It's great. I mean, that good rant. Just to sum up, the periodization, like the traditional periodization likes to isolate qualities to be trained, and block seems to periodization, that form seems to be even more extreme. So you're advocating to train all abilities. Like, why wait to train speed? Like get after it.
Yeah.
So just to kind of bridge our periodization discussion to LTAD, and I'll quote from.
Can I make one other point though? I'm going to quote.
Yeah.
There's I don't think this was in the article. If it was, where did I put it now? Gennady Turetsky just passed away 2 years ago. He coached the greatest Popov, greatest sprint swimmer. Here's what he said. And I did this talk 25 years ago, almost to the day. Ironically, now that I think about it, the AIS, and there was 100 coaches there, and I didn't know it was him sitting in front. And he stood up, and then I knew it was by his accent and everything. And basically, this is what he wrote later: speed is everything. I don't understand why coaches spend months doing this. Talk about swimming, months doing countless laps of threshold training and hard endurance work, and then hope that the swimmer's speed will return during the taper. It's all about speed. Swimmers should never be. Where's the rest of it? Well, anyway, how the athlete or how they perform. He said basically, my swimmers should be able to dive in the pool unshaved any time of the year, and he had a certain percentage, like 3 to 5% of their PB, and I believe that. So, like with our kids, we train here in swimming with 4 hours a week of dry, 3.5 hours a week of dry land. Summer's 4.5. The rest of the time in the water is the same. I think it's 22 hours to 24 hours a week. That's a pretty significant workload, and that's what we've seen is sharpen up. We in swimming, I don't know what you guys call it. They call it a drop taper, where we manipulate sets and reps. With the girls keep lifting, the boys take a week off, and bingo, they're all right near lifetime best.
Awesome.
Should be. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, I'll just follow up your quote with a quote. This is from your website. Just that talks about, just sort of summarizing the need to train all abilities. The goal of every sport is the concurrent expression of multiple physical qualities.
Yeah.
Why develop them in isolation when we are having to bring them all together to perform?
Yeah.
So, you've talked about it, and this would be, I think this would obviously trickle down to younger athletes too, like that they need to do lots of different things. And I was reading your 2007 book. I read Courtney a longer quote from it, talking about kids don't play, too much structure and all this stuff, and nothing's really changed in the last 15 years. But
right.
So just to move into LTAD, in Canada, we're pretty familiar with that model. That kind of started in Canada by Bali, Hungarian, Canadian, and Victoria. And,
I know it's fun. I'm like Forrest Gump. I was there at the creation.
right.
I'll tell you a story in a minute. But,
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we were one of the first sports to adopt that model. So, and now that it's been going for 20, 25 years, I think we had it around 2007. We adopted it. Do you feel it's made its mark, served its purpose, had an impact, or are there some limitations that are holding it back?
Well, again, it's like a lot of Bompa stuff, and a lot of things that have Eastern European origins, and that it's first of all, it's a model, and I'm not into models. I'm into frameworks. Models basically don't work, and I would say this: the structure is very seductive. It looks really cool, and the language is really seductive. I would say, show me where it's worked anywhere in the world. Show me where, and the Aussies will say, "Oh, we found row." Well, look at. I could go down to the mall today in here at Sarasota when Sarasota High comes out, and I could find 8 row. They do that. We have rowing here. I'll find rowers. I mean, that doesn't take. Sorry, it doesn't take a lot of skill. You just get them in the road, beat the hell out of them on the erg, and sorry, it's not like that. But yeah, it's a model. And for me, the jury's out. I mean,
you can criticize rowers here, by the way. That's totally cool. That's totally allowed.
Criticize what?
You don't like them either. You can criticize rowers here.
Yeah, I know you don't. Yeah. We lose a few kids to rowing now. Swimming does, but because it's a lot easier than swimming for them. So, but it's been marketed really well. It has that air of Eastern European seduction about it, and I kind of joke because Tudor came over in 1970 and Isfahan came in the late 70s, and it talks like it was yesterday, and there's no science behind it. There's they talk about peak height velocity, right? That's a little bit, so that makes it science-y. What do you do with peak height velocity? Now, some people have done a good job of measuring that, and that's an important factor to look at, in terms of and age of menstruation in the women and those kinds of things. Certainly, those are important factors. Age of puberty, okay, and but in terms of the strict blocks, the way it is, it's just it just doesn't work. And the other book I was going to recommend to you that I'm sure if you haven't read it, he's right in Toronto with you, is Joe Baker's.
Oh, Joe Baker, yeah, from York.
Yeah, and I mean, he's very. I'm not very diplomatic. He's very Canadian, so he's very diplomatic. But basically, he says it's a bunch of baloney. Is what he said. It's just it's pulling information from a time gone by. It's a different world too. It's an entirely different world. Kids don't have daily PE anymore. They had it even 20 years ago. They don't. So what are we doing? We've got, and you asked, is there another model? There is the FTM model. Again, it's a model from AIS, which at least talks about recycling kids into, so they drop out from a sport, come into another sport, and that. I mean, if I were in England, the place I would go for male and female athletes now, I'd wait outside all the Premier League academies when they cut all the players at 16. And you've got great athletes, but they're not good soccer players. I don't know if you have anything analogous in Canada. Yeah, wait at the hockey rink, boys and girls. Wait till they don't make the junior team, then you got them and capture them. So that's being a little bit facetious. So, but I would look at that. And my question that I would ask, and I think the question is a fair question to ask, I'd say, I think Isfan's about my age, so he's probably retired, but has there ever been an unbiased evaluation of it? Do you know of one? I don't. And I've seen it adopted by, you name it. I mean, I've worked in New Zealand, Australia, Trinidad, Tobago, Canada, and I've never seen an evaluation. So that's what I say. So we've got to
there have been critiques of it, right? Like that.
There's been critiques, but let's say So
What's-
what's actually happened? What's actually happened with the model? What sport used the model day to day and through these phases? I think that would be a fair question to ask. You know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay. And the other thing that I think that is missing there, and this is maybe this is just a function of age. It's too formulaic for me, but socio-cultural considerations are minimized. You know, you think of Canada. I mean, you know, your milk cartons are French and English still, I think, or are they? The labels and
Yeah.
all that. And
Yeah.
I mean, that used to be a big thing. It isn't anymore because there's more socio-cultural differences, you know, in one city now than we used to have in a country. And you know, so if you're a Hispanic kid in the barrio in the United States, and you're gonna want to play soccer. You're gonna want to play soccer. You know, you can do everything you want to try to get them away from soccer, but they're gonna want to play soccer. You know, so anyway.
So then some other models that have emerged, right? And so there's been some research and they've kind of critiqued the original Valley work. So you know, there's the UK research from Lloyd and Oliver that talk about, you know, strength as kind of the preeminent quality and
one quality again. That's your red flag.
Yeah.
That's you know, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just wondering what you think about that. Is it any different for you or?
Well, yeah, I'm not a big fan of that model. He and I got in a pretty heated discussion a few years ago, and you can't look at potential long-term performance or performance through one prism. You know, you've got to look at all the factors that make it, and the coordination is more important. Coordination is how you express your strength. Okay. And now we did something, and I say we can't look back, but today it's called biobending. You guys have you guys all heard of that? So you're basically, well, this is what we did when I was in high school. So that was almost not 70, 60 some years ago. The first day of school, now this is the fallacy, all the boys in gym shorts with no t-shirt on and socks were their height was taken, their age in months and weeks, and weight in pounds. And there was exponents. So you got, for height, you got, if you were I was 5'2" when I started high school, 5'2", you got 70 exponents. If you were 110 pounds, you got 50 exponents. And if you were 13 years, 9 months, you got 50 exponents. Well, that meant that there were A, B, C, and D classifications. I was a D classification. So I could go up, but a B or C classification couldn't go down. And I think that is one of the best things that should be implemented in that and determining peak height velocity. To me, those are the measures that would really make a difference in terms of bringing your athletes along in a systematic manner, okay? So that they're not overmatched, you know, in that. So that would be something that I would look at. I think the other thing is, like, for example, I'll use Sarasota Sharks as an example. I don't know how many teams we have. The teams aren't necessarily based on age group. The upper team that I work with primarily is based on ability. Now, there's no 11-year-olds in there, okay? And there's no 12-year-olds. There might have been one 13-year-old who was 13, turned 14 in the fall, okay? Mm-hmm. But kids have to earn the right. So they come in a learn to swim program. If they're interested, then their competitive program, it's not competition. They train 3 times a week, optional. Okay, got it? Optional. Those are 8, 9-year-olds. Then if they want to compete, they have 4 times a week, they have to make 3. Okay, there's no 2-a-day workouts until you get to 12-13. Okay, that's the group right below our group. And they come one day during the week, and then they come on, which I really like, they come on Saturday morning with the senior group with us. And so they go through the warm-up, the dry land with us to the extent that they're able, and then they do part of the workout. So they're seeing what the senior group is all about. You know, they're seeing Summer and all these other kids, you know, and because some of them think they're pretty hot stuff, you know, because they're older for their, you know, and that. So and so you earn the right. And that's emphasized, not in a negative manner. And there's behavioral considerations too. It's not just you're the fastest swimmer, okay, and that. And so I think that's really important. And if somebody's really good, 12-13, like I wonder if Summer was here, would she have been in the senior group? You know, you asked me that question. That's a fair question. I suspect that well, she swam the Olympics.
How would someone, so just going back to Summer McIntosh, and does everyone know who she is? She's a Canadian girl, 15 years old. It's an amazing swimmer, and she's down in Sarasota now training. So Vern comes across her and helps her on the dry land stuff. So, you know, what if she had went through a system that was like, that strictly adhered to Bally's like LTAD model? Like how would she come out? Would she have turned out the same way?
Yeah.
Like, where do you think she'd be right now if she had to kind of go through those?
They might have not let her go to the Olympics.
Right.
You know, and she's a classic example. And we have an Olympic silver medalist here. The pandemic helped her. She wouldn't have gone to the Olympics if she was 13 years old. I don't think anybody would have done that. You know, I think from a maturity standpoint, I don't know, and that's hypothetical. But but if you look at the typical LTAD model, it would be iffy, I think, whether she would compete. Yeah. So, and then you mentioned too windows of opportunity. There's a little bit of research to substantiate that, but not much. And again, it's fraught with a lot of mythology. Those windows don't close. I've seen athletes. Look, boys, I was an example. Okay. I started high school 5'3", 110 pounds. In June, I was 5'9", 150 pounds. When I started college football, I was 5'11" and 205 pounds. Okay. I was still growing. I still was growing until I was 21 years old, you know, and my coordination, all those motor qualities that they talk about, kept getting better and better and better, you know. So I've seen that time and time and time again. I've seen it on our team, you know. 3 months ago, kids that couldn't do forward rolls and things like that are 15 years old, no problem. They love it now, you know. So I think we create barriers, unfortunately, artificial barriers with some of these things, you know. And I don't know if I hope I'm being very critical, and maybe we could sometime do another one where you offer alternatives and we do a workshop. You do a workshop or something where you come up with with creative solutions to these things. Yeah. But it's like I said, and that's what appealed to me way back, because even though I'm Swiss Italian and probably more Latin than there's no German blood in me. I'm very German in terms of I like everything. Like, you know, I want the training to be like a polka, not like a samba or something, you know. And that's very seductive, but it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. It's jazz. It's not. I'm a big jazz fan. It's not symphony. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going
Right.
crazy here. Okay. What else?
You mentioned earlier about how the guys would stop doing weights a week before a competition and the girls would keep going. Like, at what point do you kind of start programming differently for males and females, and what other things do you kind of change for them?
Great, really great question. And now all of a sudden there's been a lot of voice, whatever happened last summer about menstrual cycles and that, and I'm going to leave that to more experts. There was some really good stuff done in Canada 30, 40 years ago on that somebody needs to go dig up in the, you know, on that part. But females in general need to strength train more frequently, and I call it volume of intensity. So when the boys start to cut back potentially to 3 days a week, we'll just keep the girls at 4. And then when, like Emma Wyatt, who got the silver medal in the 400 IM, she did her, that was the first day of swimming in the Olympic Games, first day of the Olympics. So they got to Tokyo 5 days before, maybe. So 3 days out, 3 days out of the meet, she did her last strength training workout, just like 3 exercises in that. But 7 days out, she did what we call a GH power endurance workout, 2 sets, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, max reps in that. And that's what we found is really, really important. And so in regular training, the boys, you know, like right now, the boys and the girls, the men and the women are on the same program, okay, in terms of what lifts they're doing. But depending on the young lady, okay, some of them are doing a different rep scheme, a different set and rep scheme of the same exercises. And I wish I could give you specific guidelines. Right now, we're having to, you know, we've got 5 or 6 girls that are that came in. They didn't come through our program, so we're being very conservative with them, you know. But the other thing that I found, and this is no research, this is my experience, you've got to start the girls lifting before puberty. If you don't, there's a whole different body composition. And you can, Emma Wyatt's mother is our administrator. We were talking the other day, and she has Emma's younger sister swims now. She's a international class junior swimmer, and her mother commented to me how different our girls look than the other teams. That's body composition, you know. Now you got to be careful how you say that today, but that's, you guys, that's really important. And I think with the female, and so why did anabolic substances with the East Germans and the Chinese and that, where did they work them up? That's what this book says. With women, well, if you do the right regimen in strength training, you're going to stimulate growth hormone, testosterone, you know, and that. But if you wait until there's those profound changes in puberty, you know, and that. So I saw it with my own daughter, you know, I've seen it time and time again. So anyway, so that's really important, I think.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks, Vern. So we're coming up to the end of the hour. Vern has agreed we can go a few minutes over 1 o'clock. Yeah. So question time, guys. So if you have questions, you can raise your hand. And
tell me I'm full of crap.
How do we? Ryan, who puts Ryan on? How do we do that? All right, Ryan, come on.
Hi, Vern. Sorry I don't have my camera on.
Okay.
Thank you so much for coming on. This is incredible. And congratulations on summer success. We're all cheering her on when she beat,
I hope so,
Becky in Toronto. It's amazing.
Just get behind her and don't be critical if she, you know, she's a young kid still. That's what I told CBC. She's still a kid. Yeah. Thank you.
I'm fortunate a few times. I've seen her swim in the pool. So it's amazing. So
pretty cool, isn't
it? Super interested on I don't want to phrase it incorrectly, but performance on demand, where you're saying they should be within 5% of their PB all the time. Do you think that has a more positive impact on them physically and even emotionally? Is it harder for them emotionally to be trying to be at the best at one specific time, or when you bring in all the social aspects, is it better for an athlete to just be really good most of the time?
I mean, you guys tell me, but I think the latter. I think to be really good and then come up from that. You know, I cannot stand, and I used to, you'll be okay. And, you know, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, oh shit, I hope I rolled the dice right. I hope I rolled the dice right. I don't want to do that. So I always express to him that we're at various plateau, like landings on stairs. We can hold that. And you can hold that, and you guys, I mean, you can find different ways to, I mean, there's different distances, there's different things you can manipulate to help keep them competitively fresh. But see, I don't think that's the biggest thing. And this isn't sport, this is a bit of sport psych, but it's the psycho-emotional aspect of it. I go home from practice and I can't even walk in the house. My legs are so dead. I can't lift my arms, and we're 6 weeks out. Come on, that's not very encouraging, so, and it's anyway, that enough said. It's the emotion. I think it's the emotional part, but you can also deaden them, and whether or not they come back, we've seen that, and we've seen that with middle distance and distance runners in high profile and in swimming, where they were fried. They were just fried.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. Good question, Ryan. Frederick Loyer. You're in for trouble now.
Okay.
Fred was also at the coaching house.
Okay, Fred.
But he said he didn't remember you. So
okay, that's okay.
Go ahead, Fred.
No, I remember you. I remember. Did we speak French or not? Did we?
No.
Okay.
No.
So
I can swear in Spanish and Italian and understand a lot of Spanish, but not French is no.
Well, thanks, Vern. Thank you very much. I have a question about, we used to have during our summer lots of competition. And last year that was crazy. We had, lots of races like the Canada Games and Worlds for our junior and so on. And we have lots of discussion with Rob and other coaches about, tapering and, how do we race? Do we not race? And I guess it's a part of individualization as well. But what would your approach about this, the number of competition?
Yeah.
What is acceptable for the young athletes?
Yeah. Okay, first of all, I think you have to rate competitions, developmental, important or significant. Significant is World Championship trials, National Championship. Important is I want to sharpen up, I want to race well. And developmentally, I might paddle 2 distances or something like that. So that's the first thing. I think you have to be careful with full tapers. But that being said, you have to rehearse a taper, particularly with a younger athlete who isn't used to tapering, so that they know that, I'm going to be, that I can be comfortable with backing off the work. So the thing that if you compete a little bit more frequently, and I was very critical of this when I saw it, and now I understand it. So say, for example, give me a not a sprint distance. What's a competitive distance with K1?
500 meters.
500 meters. So I go through whatever 500 meters. I finish that competition, and then I go do a workout after that. So you're already revved up, the adrenaline's going.
Yeah.
Then do like a sharp workout, so you don't lose that. So you say I backed off going into it, but I'm going to take advantage of the competitive psyche and adrenaline. And I like I said, I saw it in middle distance running, and with this guy Alberto Salazar, who was a doper and all of that kind of stuff. But now I would do it, and we're having a staff meeting here, and we're going to talk about doing that, where the kid will swim maybe a 200 and then go over in the short course pool and go 8 to 10 times 50 or something like that. So that might address some of it. But I think that the younger athlete, unless it's different in your sport, but I've seen it in so many sports, the younger athlete thrives on competition. They don't know, when you say race pace, you take a 14-year-old, well, coach, I went really hard. They didn't. They don't go really hard until somebody's in the lane next to them. So I think now you have an experienced world caliber athlete they don't have to compete as much, you know. So that would be my answer. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Good question, Fred. Anyone else have a question?
You had a, oh, go
We
ahead.
have a question for you, Vern, if no one
Okay.
else does.
And then you asked me what's next. I want to share with you what's next for me, but
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Share with us.
somebody had a question?
Is there another question? I was curious, like, what's the biggest mistake you've made in terms of planning?
Sticking to the plan. I mean, married to the plan early on, you know?
Yeah.
And even now, I mean, you know, I'll spend every Sunday for 50 some years, I'll spend an hour planning, you know, and the plan, and I joke now, make sure you write the plan in pencil. You're going to go out today and there's 3-foot waves, but you had this great workout plan. So what are you going to do? Like today, I don't know if we have that storm, we're kind of stuck, you know? So yeah, make sure it's in, but definitely I was so seduced by it that I felt like, yeah, I got to do it. I got to do it, you know, despite how the athlete felt. So my biggest advice I'd give to you is coach the athlete in front of you. Coach the athlete in front of you. You might have had a world champion last year. He or she's gone. That 16-year-old's not a world champion now. So in your head, you know, they're there. So yeah, that's I think the biggest one. And my principle, you said, simplicity yields complexity. I do the simple really well. 98% of your success is going to come from basics. And that 2% is going to come by executing the basics better. You know, and what else did you say? Yeah. But it's, you know, in today's world, and your athletes come and they'll come with their phone and they'll say, Coach, look what I saw somebody in Hungary doing. You know, they were standing on their head, paddling backwards, chewing gum. And, you know, maybe we should do that. They're the world champion. You know, if you're really good, I tell people now, if you're really good, you should put stupid stuff on the internet so your opponents will see it and do it. And then you don't have to work as hard. No, just kidding.
There you go. There you go.
So can I tell you what's next for me?
Well, yeah.
But before that, can we ask you what you're currently reading? You see, you have like an
Oh, my
extended-
currently reading. Okay. Just finished rereading Tyranny of Talent.
right?
Okay.
Bill Baker.
Miracle Machine by Doug Gilbert. I think it's out of print, but I think you can get it still in Canada. I just started this last night. I don't know if it's any good, but by Jan Ulrich. So that's my sports reading. I do read, try to read at least 3 research papers a week, a lot less than I used to. In I have a secret life. I want to be a geologist in my next life. So I'm reading about how the mountains grew, about how the North America was formed. It's actually really exciting, you know. And then I was a history teacher, and I love history. So the Global Age series of European history, Europe from 1950 to 2017. And then last one.
You do some weights with that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's my weight workout. And then Victory at Sea, about all the naval before World War II and during World War II, because sea power was the determination of your status in the world. And all of a sudden, battleships became really easy to blow up. So what happened?
Yeah.
So anyway,
Great. So what's next? So what's
About-
next for you, Vern? And how do we connect with you? And find
Yeah,
out
we're gonna share screen in a minute.
Okay.
I'm definitely gonna keep coaching through Paris. I'm enjoying, and I want being a great grandfather. I guess I have to figure out how to reconcile coaching here and the babies out in California, but we'll work that. So we FaceTime every day. Stay curious and keep learning. And I'm going to quote Clint Eastwood last week. They said, "You're 91 years old. You're making a new movie. Why are you doing that? Why aren't you retired?" He said, they said, "What do you do?" And he says, "I get up every morning and I don't let the old man in." So
there you go. Good.
I'm not going to let the old man in. And that's the coolest part about going to coach every day, because those kids, half the time, they talk about music and some things. I have no idea what the hell they're talking about, and then I ask them to explain it to me, and it's so funny, and it's always good for a laugh. So you can, how do I share a screen here?
Don't know.
Vern,
box with an
it's a
arrow.
square with the arrow.
What?
Where with the arrow?
Where's the arrow?
Down
At the
by
bottom
your-
of the screen.
Next to the
Sorry.
hand.
Oh, there. So share. Something happened here. I can just, you know what? Let me just tell it to you. This is my problem here. Okay, you ready? It's www.thegainnetwork.com. I want this show. Okay. It's THE gain GIN and then another N for network.com. On Twitter until they kick me off, it's at Coach Gambetta. My colleague put stuff on Instagram. I don't know what's on there, so you can look at Gain Network on Instagram, and probably most importantly, email is G as in go, S as in Sam, T as in Tom, S as in Sam, coach at gmail.com. And if you're interested in joining us on that hangout, just drop me an email and I'll have Martin's in Switzerland. He'll send you a link. And what else? And I'll give you my phone number, my cell number. If just the only thing I ask is don't call after 6 Eastern time, because I'm usually asleep in my chair by then. So it's 941.
Don't let the old man in.
Yeah, right. I know. They're going to bury me in that chair. 941-928-8478. So.
All right, great. Thank you. And
If any of you guys are down here, you guys please let me know, and I might love to come out and watch you train. And if sincerely, any way I can help. I got so much in my career from working in Canada and with my Canadian colleagues, both friends and professionals, that I always want to give back. So thank you so much, and all the best, and have a wonderful holidays.
all right, thank you, Vern. Appreciate
Okay,
it.
gotta head off to a staff meeting now.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Bye-bye.
All right, take care.
Thank you very much.
Thanks everyone for
Yeah,
coming
thank you.
on. Courtney, do you have anything? I guess we're done.
Yeah, we're done. Thank you
We're
for
done?
staying a little over time.
Yeah, we're 10 minutes over. Thanks for coming on, guys. We really appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll be doing another one in the new year, maybe February or something.
Mhm.
All right.